distinguishes a real opportunity from just the idea that you have. Well, an idea, and we'll talk about this, but ideas usually come from three places, right? The first one comes from your gut. It's a gut reaction. The second one is from your head. It's a reaction to what somebody said or did. And then the last one is from your heart, which is where you really focus on how is this going to make my customer's life better. So when we talk about an opportunity, the opportunity is it's been tried and tested, and there's a gap out there. So an opportunity arises from a gap in the marketplace, chaos, a problem. And your solution to that opportunity is going to be built on being attractive, it's durable, means it's going to be around for a while, there's a window of opportunity for you to capitalize on, and it's anchored in a product or service, but more so, it's anchored in a solution, right, that creates or adds value to your customer. Diana Kander uses a great example of the Segway. How many people know what a Segway is? So the Segway is, you ride around on it. She looks at Segway as really a definition of a bad idea. Why do you think? I mean, she basically says a bad idea is an idea, it's new, it's innovative, but it doesn't really create or add any value to its customer's life. Really, right? So if you look at a Segway, what value is that Segway really providing on a wide market scale? So if you can come up with a solution that's attractive, that's durable, you can deliver it in a timely manner, and that solution creates or adds value to your customer, then that's where you can capitalize on opportunity. That's where that idea starts to translate into, okay, now I have something that I can actually deliver to the marketplace. Opportunity is created using your ideas and entrepreneurial creativity. And by that I mean, you need to look at that opportunity from different perspectives. So at this point, you guys have that idea, and like I said, it's only been developed based on your own perspective. Well, some of you may have done some research, I don't know, but to build that idea and see whether or not it's going to capitalize into a real opportunity, you've got to be willing to look at it from different perspectives. You've got to be able to see it from your point, your customer's point, your supplier's point, right? So you have to look at who's all affected by this problem and the solution. And can I put myself in their shoes to really be able to look at this problem from different perspectives? Opportunities are situational, right? So sometimes they're only applicable in a specific industry. So you come up with an idea, and that idea may be a solution only for that problem in this particular industry. There are other times where you can take that solution and apply it to a different industry. So I'm going to use Chris's idea. Chris has the idea for Straight to You, which is an app that is a third-party delivery system. So basically, you need something delivered, you go on to Straight to You app, you order the food or whatever it is, and you have it delivered right to you. And that model, to me, it's almost like Uber, right? So Uber took advantage of the taxi service by creating a convenient and affordable way for you to get a ride somewhere without having to rely on the taxi service and pay their fees. So they developed an app where you can go on, find an Uber driver in your area, and have them come to you and pick you up. Well, it's very similar to Chris's model, right? So his app is taking a process that's solving a problem in one industry and applying a different business model to it in order to make it unique or creative, all right? Sometimes the entrepreneurial process, that recognizing opportunity, it's set on timing, right? So sometimes Timmons, who's an economist, used to say that sometimes it's seen as a collision of particles of a nuclear reaction, or the force of responding to a hurricane over the ocean. Certain things can line up, and when they all meet at the right time, that opportunity is right for the picking. All right? And part of that is when we talk about your window of opportunity, knowing how long is this window going to stay open? Am I coming into this window in the right time? So if that window is only going to stay open for a short amount of time, and you're already coming in towards the end, is it going to be really worth your time and effort to try to capitalize? Opportunities arise out of change, out of circumstance, out of chaos, right? You see problems in the marketplace, that creates an opportunity. One of the things I talked about in my social entrepreneurship class today, we talked about identifying areas where opportunities can arise to create social value. And when I say social value, I mean creating a business that's meant to solve a social problem rather than focus on financial gain for the start, right? So there are different areas where these opportunities arise. Technological changes, right? So the way technology changes presents opportunities for people to create a business. Communication, right? So Facebook started as a technological advancement to communication. There was a gap in the marketplace where people weren't being brought together because they hadn't seen each other, didn't know each other, and so Zuckerberg brought this platform together using technology to bring people together. Political changes, right? So as government policy changes, that also creates a rise for opportunities. So if you think about over the last 10 years, in our state particularly, a change in smoking laws, right? So they outlawed smoking in restaurants. That created a hardship for some restaurants that weren't prepared to be able to deal with that. But it also created an opportunity for restaurants to create a one-of-a-kind atmosphere for customers who didn't want to be bothered by cigarette smoking, right? And it also gave restaurants that had to deal with that an opportunity to create a new model for their existing customer smokers. Maybe they do a special dine out or takeout menu. Maybe they put a designated smoking area outside that's covered, heated, air conditioned, whatever the case may be. So change in public policy can also spur that opportunity. A change in demographics. So we have more 65 and older population than any time before. That creates an opportunity for you to be able to capitalize on that market. What can you do to take advantage of that demographic? That demographic is also more technologically sound than any other 65 and older demographic has been in the past. So you have an opportunity to be able to use technology to be able to capture that market. So when you look at where we find these opportunities, you can look into the marketplace and see, are there technological changes? Are there public policy changes? Are there demographic changes? Are there change in tastes, right? So when you talk about change in tastes, you talk about people that change their mindset of how they think about something. Going organic, going vegan, going vegetarian. Those create opportunities for people to capitalize on the market because there's been such a change in taste in those industries, right? And those change in taste result from public pressure, public policy, friends and social circles, job, work environment. So you look for those changing circumstances, you look for those confusion and the problems in the marketplace. So quickly, I want to talk on a couple different areas where you need to focus attention when looking at trying to capitalize on an opportunity. And the first I mentioned was window of opportunity. So that window of opportunity is the amount of time you have to get into that market, take advantage of that market, and hopefully be able to be there long enough to be able to generate profit or make a change for social good, and have a strategy to be able to get out of that when you know that opportunity is going to close. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to look at industry trends. So in class we talked about when you're trying to identify your position in the marketplace or how you want to get into that market, look at industry and trends. Where's the industry going right now? All right, so look at the idea that you have. Do you even know what industry it actually falls into? There is, for every business, we talked about this. So every industry has its own classification code. And using that code, you can find out what industry that your idea or your business will be competing in. And in doing that, you're going to be able to find what's the trend in that industry right now. Is it on the rise? Are there a lot of competitors in that industry? How big is the market for that industry? Are there a lot of customers to be gained from entering into this industry? Because if you can't answer those questions and you don't know what industry, you don't know enough about your industry, you're setting yourself up to be blindsided, okay? So when we talk about industry, and then we talk about trends. So one of the trends I like to use is always the cupcake business, right? So the cupcake industry for a while was going rampant with all of these, gourmet cupcakes. And shows started coming on the air, and internet sites and Pinterest and blogs, all telling you how to make these fancy cupcakes. For people that could bake, they started these cupcake shops and they're popping up all over the place. Well, what distinguishes the person who has a cupcake shop that fails within the first couple of years or months from the one that is still going strong after a 5-year and that trend is kind of drifting away? What sets those companies apart? What do you think? Josh?
Their ability to adapt, respond to changes, offer more things.
More things like what? Like what sets a gourmet cupcake apart from, gourmet here versus New York versus gourmet in San Francisco? I mean, what sets those products apart?
I mean, it could be like anything from the culture, the atmosphere of the actual shop to the ingredients that go into the cupcake. Maybe it's maybe it's a niche market for people who are like really interested in having only cupcakes that have this actual ingredient in it, or something. You have to find that niche market or find that customer base that will continue to come to you even after the kind of craze or the wave of popularity for the product has passed.
Using creativity and innovative design and entrepreneurial thoughts in terms of how do we set this apart from everybody else. I had a cupcake from a cupcake shop that cost me $4.50. It was a candy glazed bacon, maple iced, bourbon cupcake. Probably the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. And I sprung $4.50 on it for a cupcake. It was awesome, all right? It looked cool when I got it too, right? So the candy glaze on the bacon, they had it set up in a nice foil wrapper. So, they're setting themselves apart by giving me something that I never would have thought of eating: a bacon and icing and syrup and a cake all in one thing. But it was really good. Some places, New York and other areas, they're 3D printing the decorations on the cupcake, right? They're 3D printing the icing onto the cupcake. So they're giving you a unique experience. Other places are setting up their shops in different ways so that the atmosphere that you encounter in eating that cupcake makes you want to continue to buy it, makes you want to continue to come there. The cupcake might not even be the best cupcake you ever had, but the atmosphere that you're coming into that shop is what keeps you coming back. So you have to look at what's trending in the industry, but you've got to determine, is that trend something that's going to stick around? How much more do I need to put into it in order for it to continue to stay trendy in my market? What's the feasibility of you actually reaching that market? So A, is there value to be provided in that market? And can you reach them? What's the size? Is it even worth going in that market? So do you know how many customers that you potentially have? Has anybody done any research on their potential idea to look at how many people are involved in that industry yet? I think, Josh, you had some numbers on yours, didn't you, for the backpack? So you kind of have a sense of how many people are outdoorsmen or hikers or campers, right? So you look to see what's the size of that market. And then what's the scope, meaning where's the geography that I'm actually going to try to target? Am I only going to focus here on Huntington? Do I want to take this throughout the state? And this could be an international company. how many of these, out of this market, geography-wise, how many can I actually reach? Is it feasible for me to throw up a website, start marketing my product, when I know I don't necessarily have the inventory to send it to somebody who's in China or in, Europe or South America? So you have to know, focus-wise, market feasibility. Is there actually a market out there that I can provide value to? Is there enough of a market out there that I can provide value to? And can I reach them? If they are out there, can I actually reach them? Is my idea, can I have to build from the ground up locally, or is it something where I have it ready to go and I can launch it? I always tell my students and my clients, one of the first things you got to look at is yourself, right? You've got to self-assess to determine, am I even the person to do this? So in all of my consulting, before I came here, I was consulting for about 14 years. And I was always amazed at how many people would bring me great ideas, but they weren't the person to bring that idea to market, right? So there's an opportunity to be had. They have a great solution for that, but they're not the person to bring it to the market. And that's what you've got to be aware of is, am I the right person? Do I have the skills? Do I have the knowledge, the background, the education, the experience? Where are my weaknesses so that, hey, I got to bring somebody in that can do marketing. I got to bring somebody in that knows how to sell. I got to bring somebody in that knows my books, right? So you've got to understand what are your strengths and weaknesses, so that you can, if you need to bring others in to be able to launch this, you're going to be able to do it. And then what's your unique selling proposition, USP? It doesn't matter how good of an idea it is. If it's perceived by the market as not being unique, as not being better, faster, cheaper, more convenient, better quality, more reliable, you've got to set yourself apart from what else is out there. Throughout, and Ryan left, but people in Huntington always say we need another restaurant. Well, what kind of restaurant? What do we want to bring in here that we don't already have? And what's going to make it different so that people are going to want to continue to go to it versus Standing Stone or Boxers or Mimi's, right? When you look at what your competition is doing, you can't just want to do the same thing they do to compete with them. You want to stay ahead of them. And to do that, you've got to have something that they don't. You've got to do something that they don't. You've got to provide something that they can't. So you really want to focus on what makes me stand out. With my class, I use a process that's called the business model canvas. And in that business model canvas, you need to define what your value proposition is. And your value proposition is what sets you apart from your competition. What is it that your customers are going to get from you that they can't, don't want to, or aren't able to get from your competitors? And it can be anything from being new for a period of time. It could be how you price your products. It could be the quality of your products. It could be a solution that they never thought of for that same problem. So they may have a system for solving that problem now, and you do it in a way that they never would have thought of. And then finally, is it going to be rewarding and forgiving? And by that I mean, do you enjoy what you're looking to do? So when I was consulting, I was amazed at how many people that wanted to start a business simply because the industry that they wanted to start in made money. They weren't particularly happy about the industry. They definitely weren't passionate about it, but they thought it was going to make them a lot of money. Bars and restaurants are one of those misconceptions. So I work with a lot of clients that said, hey, I'm going to start a bar because it's cash business. I'm going to make a ton of money. I'm going to build it up, and then I'm going to sell it. I'm going to make a boatload of cash when I sell it. And then they find out there's a lot of work that goes into running this place. It's not really what I want to do. I don't enjoy it. And then, is it profitable? So you got to make sure you can make money. Passion is great. Passion will sell products. Passion will convince people to join your team. Passion will get money invested in your organization. But it's not a silver bullet. You've got to make sure that whatever you do can make some money. It's sustainable, right? And when I say forgiving, if you make a mistake, can you pivot? Can you still deliver that product or service, that solution, in a different manner? Can you solve a different problem? So how well have you put yourself in the marketplace to where I can pivot and I'm not going to lose my shirt, my home, right? My, everything I've already invested. So what we mean by that is, at this stage, you need to make small bets. All right, you need to throw, kind of some tidbits out into the water to test those waters, so that if it comes back that's completely wrong, you're not going to lose your shirt, and you can pivot and change that service or change that solution rather. Or sometimes you may be able to convince them that your solution is solving a problem they have and they didn't realize it. It's more difficult to do that, right? One of the things we're going to talk about in customer interviews is always try to solve a problem that somebody already has. If you've got to convince them that they have the problem on top of you having the solution, you're doing twice the work and it's going to cost you a lot more money, it's going to take you a lot more time. So think about the problem you're solving. Is it something that somebody really has a problem? So I mentioned where our ideas come from. I don't know, I know I showed this in my intro business class, but I don't think I showed this one in my intro.
3 places in your body. I know that's not what you thought I was going to say. And now you're wondering which parts of your body do they come from. So there are 3 parts in your body that ideas come from. They come from your gut, they come from your brain, and they come from your heart. Now, your gut is your gut reaction. It's the fast response that you have to something where you're trying to think fast, or something sounds really good and you haven't really thought it through. You're just trying to satiate an immediate need. And your brain takes a step back and it says, let me use some logic and reason. Let me try to put myself in the shoes of the person that I'm talking to. But really, your brain is still concerned about addressing your needs. It's just thinking about how you get what you want. And your heart actually cares about the other person that you're talking to. It cares more about creating value in their life and making their life better. And if you get what you want, great. But if you don't, your number one primary concern is to make the other person's life richer. Now, can I ask you a question? Your first offer, which was autistic art supplies, do you feel like it came from the gut? Like, what do I come up with? That sounds pretty good. His brain, what would that person say yes to? Or his heart, like, how do I make that person's life better?
So the idea behind that is gut is reactive. Your first instinct in terms of generating an idea is you hear the problem. Somebody says, I really hate when this happens. And your reaction is, hey, I got a good idea for that. And I can make a lot of money off of that. And the problem with that is it's reacting to one person's idea of a problem. And the idea is that, how much of a problem is that? So we've talked in my classes about migraines and headaches, right? So when you have a headache, what do? Pop some Advil, go about your day. When you have a migraine, it's so bad that you'll do anything you can to get rid of it. And you'll pay for that in order to get rid of it. So you want to try to focus your efforts on, is this problem a migraine problem? And if it is my solution going to solve that problem in a sustainable way on a long-term basis? So when we say it's from the gut, that's your gut reaction, it's your first instinct. And your first instincts are usually never the ones that generate into a business. So then you think, okay, let's take a step back and let's think with my head. I'm going to try to put myself in your shoes and try to look at it from your perspective. But the problem is, even in doing that, you're still thinking in terms of your own perspective of how can I make money on it. So if I look at the problem from your direction, how am I going to benefit from that? But when you really take yourself out of it and say, okay, how can I provide a solution to this person that's going to change their lives? Not worrying about at that point, am I going to make money on it? Is it going to make me rich? But how is it really going to change their lives? Because we'll develop a model. If it's something that solves that migraine, and it's something that they're willing to pay for, we'll figure out a way to put the model in place. All right? But let's try to change their life first. Well, how do you know that? I mean, how do you find out, A, if it's a real problem, B, if it's a migraine problem, and then C, it's so bad, I'm willing to take time to research other options and I'm willing to pay for those. Well, the only way to do that is to ask your customer. So, the problem with asking a customer is people do it too late. When they get into this process of idea, I came up with this great idea. So I'm going to build this idea, and then I'm going to market it to everybody, and I'm going to hope that everybody comes and buys it after I do that. Seems like a logical idea, right? Create an idea, you send it out to everybody, and you hope they buy it. The problem is by the time you get to the customer, you don't know if that idea is really what they want. You don't know if the problem is what they have. You don't know if the solution is what they really need. So you need to bring that customer into that mix a lot sooner. Right? You come up with that idea, then you need to take that idea to your customer and ask them, hey, is this a problem? Tell me about that. How did that make you feel? Why? Why? And then from that, you can go back and refine that idea. Then you can come back to the customer and they say, yeah, that's exactly what I need. And you can build it and then you brand it. Because when you get to this point of branding, you already know you have a customer because you've already talked to them, right? So, how do you do that? So this handout that I gave you was created by Diana Kander as a result of losing millions of dollars for her clients, or her investors, I should say. And so what she did was she came up with a way for you to be able to talk to your customers and find out, is this a real problem? And then talk to them after that and find out, is what I'm offering you a valid solution? So I just want to kind of go over these with you because this is probably going to be the most difficult element of proving whether or not your idea can translate into an opportunity. So whether you're in a starting position of starting a business, or whether you are an existing business and you're losing customers, or you're an existing business looking to expand, you need to talk to these customers to find out if what you're offering is what they need, and it's what they want. So to go over this quickly, I just want to touch on a few because you think talking to a person is not that difficult. And you think, well, I can ask them questions about them, whether they like my idea and would they buy it. And that's really not the process. There is a process that you want to go through to make sure that you're getting them to tell you what the real problem is without you actually asking them what the problem is. How do you do that? We have to ask open-ended questions, right? So if I am thinking of a solution for a problem, and I say, hey, have you ever had a bad experience on vacation? Yes or no? Okay. What did I learn from that? Not much. I learned she had a bad experience on vacation. I don't know what the experience was. I don't know what led to that experience. I don't know if it was a costly experience. I don't know how bad of an experience it was. So you can't ask people yes or no questions. You have to be willing to ask open-ended questions. And the point of that is you want them to share their story. You want them to talk about what a pain something was, how good an experience was, how bad an experience was. You want them to share that story willingly. And to do that, you've got to say, hey, tell me about the last time you went on vacation. What's something that happened that was really bad? Or tell me about the last time you went on vacation. How was the planning process for that? Or, hey, tell me about the last time you planned a vacation. What did you really dislike about that process? And then you kind of get them to open up, all right, by asking those open-ended questions. It's not a real problem unless the customer spent time and money trying to solve it. So if I'm trying to sell a product to somebody, to solve a problem for them, and I say, hey, you've identified this problem. What have you done to try to solve it? And you say, nothing. Well, what does that mean? It's not really that big of a problem. If I'm not willing to spend time to research a solution, and I'm not willing to spend money on those alternative solutions, then it's not really that big of a deal, right? An example that Diana Kander gives, she loves dogs, and she takes her dogs walking, right, all the time. And so somebody said, well, what do you, is there any part of that walking the dog that you don't like? Well, yeah, I don't like cleaning up after my dog. Oh, well, what have you done to fix that? Well, anybody in here have a dog? What do? How do you clean up after your dog? You take it for a walk in the park.
Maybe a little baggy.
You take a baggie with you, right? They're free. You get them from the grocery store. So it's not that big of a deal to her, right? Because she's not going to buy a product that would strap to the back of a dog that he carries around with him so that it automatically drops into a bag while he's going to the bathroom, right? Because it's not that big of a deal. I just grab a grocery bag on the way out the door and I'm good to go. It's not a migraine problem. It's not even really a headache, to be honest with you, in her opinion, because she doesn't even really think of it as, I don't like it, it's not my most enjoyable part of the walk, but I'm not going to spend money and spend a lot of time trying to resolve it because it's not really that big of a deal. You also want to qualify your interviews. So, particularly for you students, as you guys start to test some of your assumptions, you're going to need to talk to some of your potential customers. You're not just going to pick people out of the blue, right? So Josh, you have a survival backpack idea. You're not just going to go up to the first person you see and start asking them questions about, your solution. Because you don't know at this point if they're actually even somebody who would buy the product in the first place or if they've experienced that problem. So you've got to qualify them. You've got to make sure that they have a problem, is the one that you assume, and it's a big enough problem that they were willing to spend time and money to research a solution, right? So you got to qualify those interviews. You got to make sure that the potential customers you're talking to are actually customers, right? If they're not, you don't want to waste time talking to them because they're not going to help you. If you can, and this one gets to be difficult, try to conduct those interviews yourself, in person, all right? Why is it better to conduct an interview in person versus doing it over the phone? What would be the benefit of doing it in person, one-on-one?
Well, I mean, from a business communication point of view, we talked about this in class, but in like face-to-face communication is the richest kind, or like its highest if you were to kind of grade it compared to like a text message or something, because you are able to observe the person that you're interviewing, see if their words match what they're saying, so you can kind of see like, do they just want to share their story for the sake of talking about it, or are they like, is this really a problem, or are they just kind of saying like, oh yeah, I thought that could be a problem, and then it's kind of clear from their nonverbal cues that they're not.
One of the things you have to realize about people, they're really nice. They don't want to hurt your feelings, but they will lie to you. They will lie to you to spare your feelings, right? If you're talking to somebody over the phone, like Carly said, face-to-face is the richest form of contact. If I'm face-to-face with you, I can see eye contact, I can see body language, right? I can sense if you're nervous about the question or if you're uncomfortable. So I'm sitting here fiddling with my video, and face-to-face you can see I'm starting to sweat a little bit, it's thinking to come on. If you didn't see me, you might not know I was having that issue, right? So face-to-face, you can pick up indicators of whether or not they're being honest, whether or not they're sincere about how big of a problem it is, and you build a better trust face-to-face than you would over the phone. I mean, how many people have answered the phone and it's somebody calling to try to sell you something, or it's a survey, or lately it's been political campaigns, right? As soon as you hear that, you just want to hang up. You don't even want to be on there. So if you can get them face-to-face and build that trust, more likely you're going to get more honest answers out of them. Don't sell during your qualifying interviews. So when you're trying to research a problem with your customers, don't try to sell them on the solution, right? You don't even want them to know you have a solution. You want to make this as casual as you can so that they feel comfortable in giving you responses that you're looking for. So don't try to sell them on the solution right as soon as you're asking them about the problem. Let them know that you're doing it for class research. Let them know you're trying to look into it for a friend who wants to do something, right? So you want to try to be as casual as you can, and if you try to sell it to them, what's going to happen? You're going to lose that trust. If they think that you're setting them up for a big ask at the end, they may not be as honest with you, they may not give you the time that you need to be able to really dig deep into that problem. Always separate the problem and the solution. So do separate interviews. So do a round of interviews where you find out, is this a problem? How big of a problem? What have you done to solve this problem? Why is it a problem? And then go back through when you have a solution and test that solution. And when you test that solution, that's when you're essentially pre-selling. You're getting a sense of commitment. Are they going to be early adopters? Are they going to jump on board with this solution? Or are they looking for something better, bigger, faster, more reliable, less expensive, whatever the case may be? So do different rounds of interviews, right? So find out what that problem is, how big of a problem it is, and then once you've identified that as a problem that you can solve, then go back and do interviews to test that solution. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they're asking people about problems is using the would you phrase. Would you are probably the two worst words that you can use when you're conducting an interview trying to discover a problem. Why do you think? So I discovered this problem that you have, and I came up with a solution, and now I say, hey Jane, would you buy this if it were, $10 and I could deliver it to you? Would you? You say you would. You can't predict the future. It's easy to say, yeah, I would buy that. I would do that. I'll take care of that. And then what happens? Stuff gets in the way. This whole week, mostly this week, I have my advisings coming in. Hey, would you be willing to meet with me to sign my POE my POE form? Yeah, I'd be willing to do that. And then what happens? Well, I got class, I got meetings downtown, I've got doctor's appointments, so I would be willing to meet with you, but there's stuff that gets in my way, right? It's the same thing with problems and solutions. If you ask them to predict the future, they're going to think rationally and answer rationally. Think rationally, but they're going to answer irrationally because they don't really know if that's even possible. Yeah, right now I'm telling you I would buy that. And then when it comes on the market, you're like, yeah, that's not really what I want. Or I changed my mind. Or I don't really have the money. You don't know what's going to happen. So only focus on present behavior and past experience. When you talk to your potential customers, you want to get them to share past experience. All right? Why was that such a problem? How did that happen? Tell me about that experience. Hey, tell me about the last time that you went on vacation. What went wrong, right? So don't use future tense questions. Do one interview at a time. So it seems like a tedious process, but why do you think you would only interview one of your potential customers at a time? Yeah, if in a group setting, there tends to be that influence. So as people start to answer, you may clam up. Oh, I wouldn't have answered that way, so I'm not really going to say anything else, right? You can build a better trust with somebody in a one-on-one setting and make them feel more comfortable than in a group. In a group, there's that bias factor. They can be easily influenced. And you can't always pick up on all the indicators on each person in that group. So here I can keep track of eye contact and body language, but because I'm focused on different people, I may miss indicators from other people. Hey, you're going on too long. Hey, is it time to go yet? So I may miss that stuff, right? So try to do them one at a time. Understand what you're trying to learn before you begin. Come up with a hypothesis. What do you want to get out of this interview? If I say this, then this is what I expect to happen. So when we talk about hypotheses, you guys learned that in elementary school, right? The if-then statements. If I do this, then I expect this to happen. If I say this, then I expect this to be responded back to me. Come up with that hypothesis before you begin the interview. Don't try to do these on the fly. Try to prove the opposite. So sometimes you can actually prove what you're trying to prove by getting them to try to prove the opposite. And the other thing with that is it prevents them from automatically trying to please you by answering the right way, right? So if you can get them to prove the opposite, you've either proven the idea is not going to work, or the problem's not there, or you can prove the problem is there by, if they're unable to prove the opposite. If you can, get them to refer you to somebody else, right? So if they've had the problem, maybe they know somebody else who had the problem. And use that as a springboard to get more customers, right? I talked about in class today in marketing, it's always less expensive and easier to build your customer base by using your existing customer base. The same way with the interview process, right? The more that you can get those people that you interview to refer you to other people that are like-minded, experience that problem, the more likely you're going to be able to have qualified candidates. Definitely do more listening than talking. This is about them. You want to get them to share their story. You want to get them to express their pain in the situation. You want to get them to share their experience, good or bad. You can't do that if you're doing all the talking, right? So you've got to get them to open up. Ask open questions. Tell me about this. Instead of asking, and we'll talk about don't lead, right? You don't want to lead them on a question. Hey, tell me why you think leaving your laundry detergent in your room when you go to do laundry is such a pain. You're trying to force them to make that the problem, right? You don't want to lead them into that. You want to get them to talk about that. Hey, tell me what's the biggest pain when you do your laundry, right? Tell me about the last time you did your laundry. What do you really dislike about that process? Well, I hate the fact that when I got all my stuff down there, all the units are always taken, even though online it says they're available, right? So you want to get them to express what the problem is. You don't want to lead them into it. And that's why it's important that you ask open-ended questions and get them to do most of the talking. And then when they answer, drill down. Use the 5 whys. Why do you feel that way? Why do you think that happens? Right? Keep asking why. If you can ask why 5 times, you're going to get them to open up what the real problem is. Don't just settle for that first response. Drill down and get them to open up. Why did that happen? Why did it make you feel that way? Why do you think that solution didn't work? Why do you think you paid for that and weren't happy for it, right? So keep drilling down. You should do the interviews, I talked about that. Try to get them to sit down. So if you can get them in a casual setting, hey, do you have time for a drink? I'll buy. I just want to ask you a couple questions. I'm researching this for a friend. I'm doing a science project or I'm doing a class project. So get them to sit down. If you get them to sit down, they're going to be more comfortable. They're going to be more open to respond to you. You're going to build a better line of communication and trust with them, as opposed to having them stand there. So I did this experiment in my entrepreneurship class last semester. And I didn't ask them, I didn't tell them to do that. I just told them, I want you to conduct these interviews, put together your questionnaire, and I want you to video or audio record it. And they did that. And then after they did that, I could kind of sense whether or not they got that person into a sitting position or whether they were standing and doing like an intercept interview. And on every single one of them, I could tell. And they said, yeah, we were standing in the middle of the quad talking. Well, that interview was hurried, it was rushed. Their responses were short, they didn't elaborate. So if you can get them to open up, if you get them to sit down, you'll get them to open up. Diana Kander wrote a book, it's called All In Startup. If you get the opportunity, you should read it. All In Startup by Diana Kander. It talks about a person who started a business thinking that he started a high-end recycled business, bike retail shop. And he would buy recycled parts from these high-end bikes, assemble them, and then sell them for about half the price. And he started it because he thought that price was the big problem. Everybody would buy these bikes because they're high-end bikes, but they're half the price as buying a brand new one. And he was wrong. And he was wrong because he didn't go out and talk to his customers to find out what was the real problem they had. And the book kind of shares his experience of going through, learning to go through these customer interviews. And then don't be all business. So if you make it all business, it's going to be all business. They're going to be tight, they're going to be uncomfortable, they're going to give you short answers, they're going to try to finish the interview as fast as they can. So try to get them into a casual atmosphere, open up with a story, ask them a totally unrelated question, right, to get them to talk a little bit. Don't just dive right into the interview, maybe. Ask them, maybe lead into the interview by asking them about something that's related to the problem. Maybe you can compliment them in a way that gets them to talk about where they buy their clothes or whatever. But try to get them to open up by keeping it casual, right? Just break the ice in the conversation, and then lead that conversation back to the problem. All right. So these customer interviews are really an invaluable tool. Why don't more people do them? I mean, why doesn't every business follow this process? Seems like it's kind of a no-brainer.
I mean, I think time, because this takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of kind of personal or intrinsic initiative, and it takes a lot of time. It can also cost money if you interview 50 people, and for every one of you say, hey, come have a drink, I'm buying, like that starts to add up for a bit too. I'm sure you can find ways to cut that cost down to like minimal expenses, but I mean, this is like a whole added stage, and I think most people get really excited about the idea that they have, and that's why they fall into that trap, like you were saying, where you have idea and then brand, and then by the time you get it to the customer, it's too late because
a lot of people have this idea that their idea is the best idea, and you don't want to hear anything negative. Because when you hear something negative, then you maybe start to feel like maybe I shouldn't be doing this product or service. So I guess sometimes hearing the potential customer feedback that isn't what you thought of, you assume that, well, they don't know what they're talking about, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm going to do, and that might be the road to failure.
And that's even a bigger reason why you should do them, right? Because if you're not hearing what you thought the customer was going to say, that's probably an indication that you're not really solving the problem, right? And then in terms of what Carly said, those are the standard excuses businesses give. I don't have time to do those interviews. Well, how much time would it take you to do those interviews? And then how much time are you spending after you've started the business? You're bleeding money, your bank account is empty, and now you're trying to spin your wheels to try to save that business. In the book that I mentioned, All in Startup, the character Owen has lost about $450,000 in a year on his business because people are going to his site and they're clicking on his website and they're looking at his inventory, but nobody's buying. And had he done those interviews, he would have known what the real problem was trying to solve, not just the price. And so as a result, now he's spending more money by increasing the attractiveness of the website, putting together new marketing materials, sending out samples of bikes for people to test ride, right? He's spending more and more money trying to solve a problem that he probably shouldn't have been trying to solve in the first place. It becomes that we call that loop of despair, right? So once you got it out there and people aren't buying it, then you throw more marketing into it, right? And you spend more money. So yeah, it might cost you $100, $200, $500 to do interviews, but that's a small price to pay considering what's going to cost you if you lose $3.5 million of investors' money, right? Yeah, it might take you some time to be able to do that, but isn't that time spent before you invest all that money worth it than trying to clean up something that's not really going to be there after after a year, after 2 years, or it's there after 3 years, or what they call kind of a zombie business? You're not making money, you're losing money, you're just kind of floating there, lifeless. There's nothing you can do except continue to sink more money into it, or make that decision to cut it loose, eat your losses, lay off your staff, right? So when it comes to distinguishing between the idea and the opportunity, it's all about the customer. You've got to get it from the customer. You've got to find out if it's an opportunity, and they've got to express the problem. They've got to express how big of a problem it is. And they've got to express that they're willing to pay for a solution to that problem. All right? Does anybody have any questions? So think about your ideas that you're at right now. Where are you at in that process? Do you know who the potential customers are that you've got to talk to find out, is my delivery app the solution? Is it solving a problem that people have? Is my backpack going to solve the problem that these outdoors people have, right? Do you know who you need to talk to? And then, how do you need to talk to them? How do you get them to open up? Follow these. It is not easy. I'm going to tell you right now. Your first time through, you're going to ask yes and no questions. You're going to ask would you questions. You're going to lead them with questions in terms of what the problem is you're trying to get from them. After you start doing them over and over, you'll get more used to being less talking and have them do more talking. All right? Don't feel like you can't ask for help. Right? So you have us, you've got faculty, you've got community that will help you do these questions, go through these interviews, help you find potential customers to be able to contact, provide you the atmosphere to have a casual setting in order to conduct those. All right? But I'm telling you, if you go through this process, you're going to know by the time you do your pitch, is this something I really want to pitch on? Or do I need to change gears? Do I need to pivot? Do I need to find a different solution? Or occasionally, like I said, sometimes it's, can I actually educate them on what the problem is and convince them they have it and convince them my solution is what they need? You can do that. It's a lot more time consuming. It's usually a lot costlier. All right? So if I can leave you with those things, focus on a problem that somebody already has. Try to solve a problem that you know already exists. And then provide a solution that's going to add value to that customer's life. It's going to change it. It's going to make it better. They're going to be so thankful that you came up with that solution that they're not even going to worry about looking for other solutions. All right, so add value. All right, any questions? I will hang out for as long as you need me to answer any personal questions. I appreciate you guys coming. I hope that helps you on your pitches. If you have further questions on the next steps, let me know. The next seminar is March 15th. You only have to listen to me for about 15 minutes for that one. I'm going to go over the elements of the pitch, what's the actual content that you need to pitch on, and then Sarah Worley, Dr. Sarah Worley, is going to talk to you about how to deliver that pitch. Eye contact, body language, voice inflection, deliver it with confidence. So you're going to put up with me for about 15 minutes. I go over the elements, and then she's going to take over the rest and really talk about how to deliver a knockout pitch. The last one will be March 29th, I think. Yeah, March 29th, which is Tuesday. And that's going to be, I'm bringing somebody in who's going to talk to you about how to develop some realistic projections. How do I actually figure out how much money I can generate from this business, right? And then if I'm going to ask for something, how do I know what I'm asking for? And how do I know that what I'm asking for is going to be something that somebody's willing to give me, all right? So 15th and the 29th, they are scheduled 5 to 7, but again, that's a total time. The actual sessions will probably only go anywhere from an hour and 15 to an hour and a half, and then we leave it open for questions and networking. All right. So students, thank you. Good luck on any midterms. Safe travels on spring break, and I'll see you when you get back. Community folks, happy to stick around and answer any questions if you have anything. My contact information is on here as well, so you can get a hold of me after the fact, throughout the competition, if you have any questions. All right. Thank you, guys, and good night.